Hello, so today we're going to go over portals and variants with some examples. So basically what I'm going to be going over a lot is like understanding variance, what it means in TFT, as well as in games in general, kind of like as a general like little fun kind of guide. And then I'm going to tie that into just talking about primarily portals and basically like how you can change your strategy to try and minimize the effects of those portals, as well as understand how the choices you make and how you're sitting on certain portals starting the game could greatly change how the game actually ends up being played out before the game even starts. And a lot of that is tied to variance. So variance, basically like it's kind of like a blanket term, right? A lot of times like when you're talking about variance, you're just talking about like how things alter based on like the expected outcome, right? Like high variance basically meaning like things wildly can swing and be less predictable, and low variance meaning that like things are very static and the same thing happens every time. If you don't think about it this way, like TFT like is a lot like a card game, right? I actually really loved reading these a while ago, like back when they were coming out pretty regularly. Basically like Magic the Gathering did a bunch of these guides and kind of like talking about like different aspects of the game, just to be like a little bit more welcoming, as well as give like an idea of like how certain things affect the way the game is played and the game is balanced and stuff like that. I don't play Magic the Gathering. I don't even play card games. I played Yu-Gi-Oh growing up, and that's about it. Right, I was really big into that at the lunch table. You know, I had my Naturia Beast deck, and I went kind of nuts in the Synchro era. But other than that, I don't really play card games. But TFT is essentially like a card game with a shared deck. And a lot of these guides are actually really applicable to many different kinds of games. So I especially recommend checking out some of these Magic the Gathering like posts, which are really funny, right? There's one about like Timmy's and Spikes, which kind of talks about like your mentality when choosing to play a game. This one kind of talks about variance and choice. So some of the slides that are going to come up, I kind of just took like the outline that they gave and kind of going to put it in terms of like TFT a little bit, right? But the understanding is the difference between like high variance games and low variance games and what that can affect in terms of how you play the game, right? So strictly, if you're looking at like variance in TFT, a lot of high variance games, right? Like the main points from that guide they were talking about was basically having novelty, right? Basically like the idea that like the games are very different, right? When there's a lot of high variance games, when a game has a lot of variance, right? Not every time you play the game is going to be the same, right? It's the same like TFT, right? You can get different units, different augments, different items, right? Because there's all these elements of variance that you're not just selecting and building your game. Every game kind of feels fresh and new because you have to play around different things. You can try and hard force the same thing, but it's not necessarily the best thing if you're in a very high variance lobby, right? It also forces you to focus on large details, and it favors flexible gameplay, right? Because you have to see like overarching themes, right? You can't try and hyper optimize certain situations. Like obviously if you get really good and when you get to like high ranks in any game, you have to have those very like minute details down. But what I'm saying is like if the game is wildly swinging, like imagine like, you know, we'll talk about it later, like a loot subscription game, it doesn't really matter if you know like the inner details of how Dryad works if you're gonna get rolled over by like a 7 fortune guy, right? You have to understand like, okay, I need to like figure out a way to like deal with these other things. And that's where like understanding larger details and flexible gameplay kind of matters a little bit more than like some of those inner workings. It also at the same time, as much as you need to know like these large details, you have to have a deep understanding of everything, because you have to understand when things are good in certain situations, because all the situations are always different. The other thing that sometimes like is associated with variance, and you hear a lot with TFT, like anyone can win, it's like this idea that less experienced players can win. That's just like sometimes the variance swings so wildly that even if you're not favored in a particular fight or a particular matchup, you'll probably do better, right? It's different than like a fighting game, for example, right? Like I used to compete, I used to go to IRL tournaments for fighting games, right? I was never really good, you know, I'd win like maybe 1 or 2 matches and then like lose my 2 and go home, right? But it's a very different environment, because when you're up against somebody that's better than you, like they're clearly better than you, right? But in TFT, somebody could like make really bad decisions or not be as good, and sometimes you just see them and you're like, damn it, that guy's winning and he like didn't play this game right. But you know, in a way they did play the game right, you know, who are you to say? But that's something that happens when there's like a lot of wild swings, right? Sometimes people can just hit something crazy, but at the same time that makes the game exciting, and that's why TFT has like a certain appeal. It has like that slot machine appeal where you can go back and play it multiple times, right? But then at the same time, like you might have games in TFT, there's also like, as much as there's high variance, there's also games sometimes where it's low variance, right? then you're favored more for like having consistency, understanding particular niche situations really well, as well as understanding very small details, understanding like how to hyper optimize the particular board that you're playing, because like like this is what I'm gonna hit, this is what I'm gonna have, this is how things are gonna go. If you don't have a lot of variance to it, the best way to edge out your opponent or like get that competitive edge on them is to focus on these small details and have like a lot of experience. At the same time, it can also simplify the game and make it very skill reliant, right? Because if you're always playing like particular comps, or if you're playing in a very particular situation where nothing's really changing board strength relative from one person to the other, then you run into these situations where you have to like outplace your opponent, you have to outposition your opponent, you have to like focus on like these very minute details, which results maybe in like, instead of like knowing like 100 things, right? It's like, the guy who practices a punch 1,000 times, blah, 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 right? It turns into that type of game, right? And sometimes people like complain a lot with variance, like, this game's all luck, this game blah, blah, blah. I think TFT has a good balance of like, some games can feel very high variance, some games can feel very low variance, but in all, I think that TFT, like, it has a decent balance, especially when there's good patches, at least, right? When there's bad patches, I usually quit the game, but when there's good patches, I'm actually enjoying the game. I find that it's usually because there's a good balance of like keeping it exciting with like high variance as well as having low variance. Because if I wanted like every game to be low variance, like with no variance at all, I'd just play chess and I'd play fighting games, which I used to do in the past, right? The itch that I'm scratching with TFT is the fact that it does have some variance. So, just know what you're getting into when you're playing the game, and that's like something just to overarch it. This ties really well into portals, right? Portals are like the things that you sit on at the beginning of the game. They start the whole game basically, and it's like the first instance of variance. It's the first thing that kind of lets you decide, how is this game gonna go? Is this gonna be like some kind of crazy game, or is it gonna be some kind of like normal game, right? And it basically makes this overarching game, right? It gets this game state where like you have to understand, like, if I understand what these portals mean or what I interpret them to mean, then I have to understand how this would shape my decision and shape my future strategies, right? So now the rest of this guide, I'm going to try and do some examples, but I'm going to mostly go over all the portals in the game and basically what my game plan is, right? I want to write really big here that this is very opinion, right? I'm going to be saying like, I like this portal, I don't like this portal, I think you should do this, I think you should do this. This is from my experience of grinding up to master, right? I'm a master level player. If you don't know, and if you're just coming to my channel, I post daily VOD reviews. And then occasionally once or twice a week, I'll post a guide like this one, just to be a little bit more like spicy and fun for viewers, right? But typically what I'm doing is I'm just VOD reviewing my own games, criticizing myself and my own decisions so that I improve because I find the game fun, and that's basically what I'm doing, right? But understand that I'm like this level of player, right? If you're like a high challenger player and you look at me and you're like, damn, this guy's a fucking idiot, it's like, yeah, I probably am, because you're much better than me. And if you're much lower ranked than me and you're like, damn, this guy's a fucking idiot, that's your own opinion and you can think that, that's totally fine. But I'm just saying, like, just know that a lot of what I'm saying is based on the bias of my experiences playing the game and what I think it is. And the value that it has is that if you look at me and say, oh, this guy made it to master, this is some of the thought process that would go along in somebody that has that skill set. That's all I mean to say, right? Anyways, so when we talk about we'll just start with like easy. Like a lot of times you'll hear like people play greedy or people play like not greedy, right? Greedy, whenever I talk about greedy, what it usually means is that you're trying to maximize econ, right? When you're trying to maximize econ, it means you're either trying to win streak or lose streak, right? The way you maximize econ is either by streaking with winning because you get the streak gold, right? Or you maximize econ by losing and you get your lose streak gold, right? If you get like 5 or 6 in a row, you start to make more gold. And that's what being greedy is, right? So a lot of times it's hard to be greedy if you are win streaking because like anybody can spike their board randomly and you have to invest gold in order to making yourself really strong. So when I say like for example, gold opener, start with 7 more gold. Typically this favors a greedy play because you can't guarantee that you're going to be a win streak. It kind of separates the lobby, right? The people that have a really good opener, they'll be able to make econ thresholds and they'll be able to high roll and blah, 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 and they'll be good, right? What typically ends up happening though, this was a strategy that was very apparent back when gold openers weren't consistent, right? A lot of times, like in the past, this wasn't a portal. It's like sometimes people would just get a bunch of gold at the start of their game and other people would get components. It wasn't like normalized like it is now. They fixed that as a patch like a couple patches ago, right? But what would happen is if you got a gold opener, you would just lose streak, right? And the reason you lose streak is because if there's somebody that's like high rolling and they're gaining a lot of gold from winning and they already have this gold opener, then that's fine. Let them high roll. The only way that you can really compensate for that is by lose streaking, because they're going to have a lot of HP and they're going to have a lot of money from win streaking. If you're somewhere in the middle where you're broke because you're spending your gold trying to be strong, but you're not strong enough to streak, what's going to end up happening is you're going to waste a lot of gold trying to be strong early. You'll save some HP, but in the late game, the people that lose streak are going to be so rich that they'll be able to hit like insane boards, right? They'll have enough gold to eliminate all the variance later because they'll be able to hit whatever board they want, right? If the main crux of TFT is like the more gold you have, the more normalized your outcome is, right? If you roll 10 gold on level 8, it's very low chance because there's very high variance that you'll hit the exact units that you want. But if you roll 100 gold on level 8, you know, on average, you're going to hit a really good board, right? That's kind of how it goes. So that's why, like, if you start with a lot of gold and you see that you're not strong enough to streak, a lot of times you might want to just, like, commit to, like, a lose streak, right? We'll do over some, like, board openers as well that I'll mention just in a second. And the same thing with larger legends, right? Larger legends is like the opposite. Instead of starting with gold, you start with more player health, right? I'm sure if anybody's played TFT, there's going to be a game where you're playing it and you're like, damn, if I had like one more life, if I had like 10 more HP, I would have got that fortune cash out, or I would have got that level 9, or I would have hit that unit. You know, I was like 10 HP away from winning. Like, there's so many times that happens in TFT. That's what you have to think about when you have larger legends, right? A lot of times it's very plain, but you can cap really high with it, right? And now we'll go right aside from greedy play, there's also aggressive play, but right between this slide, I'll just go over some like openers and stuff, right? A lot of times when you're thinking about units and openers, like when I say a strong board early, right? Like the epitome of a strong board early is something like a Story Weaver board, right? The Story Weaver board, if you have like a Garen upgrade and a Jax upgrade, you get this additional Kale. So you're literally like +1 unit on the rest of the board, right? +1 unit is a lot stronger than most of these like augments, right? Like, would you rather have an extra unit or a trick shot? A lot of times this Kale is what makes the board insanely strong, right? And that's something that you should always like take into account, right? Having these really strong boards help you to basically streak and do really well, right? If you have like a Story Weaver board, for example, that's something where you can play very aggressive and be very strong, right? If you have something like a Faded opener, right? Because the Faded bonus can basically, like, especially if a Yasuo, it basically just gives you like all your units like a giant health shield. Well, not the Rek'Sai, but like the other two, right? So having that health shield, you know, when everybody has like 1-cost units that have very low HP, that health shield is like exponentially more valuable, right? It's the same with something like an Umbral opener, right? Like a very common Umbral opener is something like this one right here, right? Where you have Darius, Kiana, Malphite, Yorick. You get Behemoth in for the Yorick. You get Duelist in for like Kiana and Darius. And this Kiana unit is very fucking strong if you don't know how to play around her. And then like the Heavenly and the Umbral gives you like your whole board, like armor, shielding, and attack speed, right? Or attack damage, sorry, with Kiana. So a lot of these are like very, very strong openers where you have like a very strong board. But a lot of times if you don't have a board like this, right, like imagine if you just have like a bunch of random shit units, like a Kabuko, a Senna, and like a Garen. It's like you can't really like force the board to be strong, right? You're probably going to win a fight and lose a fight, or like have some sort of situation, right? Where you're trying to preserve HP, but then you don't streak, and then you invest a lot of gold, and then you fall behind of the lobby, right? That's just something that, you know, is worth mentioning, right? But typically, like, even if you don't have a strong opener, there's some portals that really favor aggressive play, right? An example is component anvils, right? Completed item, and anvil buffet especially, right? A lot of times what you're trying to do with these ones is because you're up items and you're able to pick your items, right? Like with a completed item and component anvil, a lot of times you're able to itemize your units very easily, right? If you have a bad opener, obviously you can still greed it, but a lot of times having components, you can kind of like, if you itemize the unit that you have upgraded, right? Like let's say you have a Garen upgraded. If you give the Garen a good Garen item with these, a lot of times, like, that's an idea of playing aggressively, right? Instead of like greeding to have like perfect items for your carry or something like that, you want to just play whatever board you have, put the best items on that board, because people are going to spike really hard, right? With especially with Anvil Buffet, right, where things drop as component anvils, people are going to have good items on their carries all the time. So a lot of times, indecision is what's going to lead to bad placements, right? If you just sit and don't slam any items, and everybody's slamming really good items, they're all going to be really strong, and you're just going to lose a bunch of HP. So then greeting becomes really difficult, especially with something like Lethal Legend, right? If you don't slam items and you don't play around the fact that you're taking extra damage every turn, then, like, you know, playing greedy now, you get a lot more punished, right? If you hold on to your items, because people are able to make items very easily, most of the lobby is going to separate into people that are like slamming items that they have good items to slam, and you that might be like sitting there with a bunch of anvils on your bench, right? An example of like an aggressive game, I should have one here, is this one, right? So this one is Anvil Buffet. I believe. Oh wait, sorry, this is one turn too late. Let me go back a little bit so you can see the anvils. So this one is every time I get a component, it drops as an anvil. That's the galaxy that I'm playing in, right? This is a video, I think I uploaded it yesterday. And as you can see here, I just take Story Weaver because it's the strongest, right? I know that this is going to be a lobby where people have to play really aggressively, so I'm taking an aggressive opener. I'm playing the Story Weaver one that's very strong, right? Guarantee that I'll have 5 Story Weaver and play around Story Weaver Emblem. I talked about it in the video. And then it gives a Protector's Vow, which is good on Garen. As you can see, Garen is my only upgraded unit. What do I need to make? I want to make a frontline item. So I really want to make Spark to work with this Kale, because Kale is my carry, so Spark works well with Kale to give Shred. So what do I do? I'm not making like Sivir items. I'm not making like backline items. I'm making the items on the unit that is the strongest, right? That's playing very aggressively, right? Because what I'm doing is I'm committing very early to the items that I'm making. I'm not sitting waiting for items. I'm not saying, maybe I play Zyra, maybe I play Lilia, maybe I play this. It's like, no, I'm making a decision, right? I'm making a Shred, which means I'm playing AP, right? And I'm playing very tempo based, right? And what ends up happening here, besides like the one or two little exchanges that might happen, how do I phrase it? Besides like a couple exchanges, I generally stay really high HP in the lobby, right? Because I'm playing very aggressive. I'm picking a comp that spikes at regular intervals. I took a Story Weaver emblem. So I'm playing something that might not cap as high, right? I might not get first because I won't be as strong as somebody later. But I do play like in a very like strong setting, right? Especially with something like Anvil Buffet. Anvil Buffet works out really well because you're always going to get anvils. So as you can see here, I ended up committing to a strategy where I took Golden Remover and I made a bunch of Thieves Gloves, right? Because you can remove the Thieves Gloves and rearrange the items so they work best on the carries, right? And I just keep, you keep like playing with tempo in these lobbies, and how do I phrase it? Typically you'll do really well, right? When it's those type of games. And that's what I mean by aggressive play, right? A lot of these times where you're getting like early resources, if you don't use those early resources, the people that do use those early resources are gonna like steamroll the lobby, right? But of course, if you have like a really bad opener that you won't be able to win streak or lose streak, it might be better to lose streak and then you greed. But typically you want to like try and make yourself relatively strong to the rest of the lobby, even if you are lose streaking. Now we can go into like more low impact portals. Right, we kind of did like a little bit of an intro and stuff like that, right? Some low impact portals, right? When I say low impact, what I mean is like they typically don't change the game that much so long as you like understand how to play around them, right? An example is 3-cost champions, 3 champions, as well as upgraded champion, right? There's some champions where there's high rolls on an easy stage 2, but you also have to know when to sell for econ, right? So for example, if we're looking at 3-cost units, right? Like let's say the 3-cost units, there's a lot of them that are like pretty good, and there's some of them that are situationally strong, but a lot of them that are just straight ass cheeks, right? There's some of them that are just so fucking bad, right? Like for example, seeing a Soraka early is very situational. She doesn't really do anything, right? She's a backline unit that doesn't do that much damage, right? Maybe if you have like a Riven and you're playing Story Weaver and it's altruist, it kind of makes sense to hold on to it, but this is 3 gold for this shit. It's not going to help you streak, right? A lot of times, like, if you have a Soraka, it's not like you win out with a Soraka, right? A Soraka is like an auxiliary unit, right? If you're looking at 3 costs, right? A Diana, very strong, right? She's a really strong tank. Amumu, really strong tank. Alawi, this is probably singly the best drop you can get. Obviously there's like other ones that like maybe are situationally better, but Alawi is just so fucking strong as a tank that like a lot of times just having an Alawi early is insane, right? And Tom Henge to a certain degree as well, right? Some of them are situationally strong. I did miss one. I'll put it here so that people don't get upset if they don't see it. But there's some of them that are like situationally strong, right? Like Aphelios with a faded opener, Yone with like Reaper setup and Reaper items can go off really hard. The same with Volibear with like just being like a really strong tank if you have good AP or duelist or frontline items. Thresh for the same reason as Aphelios, right? Alune because Umbral, especially if you hit like a 4 Umbral threshold. Zoe for the same reason with Arcanist as well as Storyweaver. There's some of these that are like important to hold. These are like, if I'm leaning towards these comps, I hold on to these units. These are like probably playable if I think I can win in the lobby, right? Like if I have other upgrades, like let's say I have an Amumu and I have like a Garen 2, it's like, yeah, that's probably going to be very strong, right? Especially if I have like a Lux or something and I could get early Porcelain in. Right, there's different options to play around, right? And it's the same with like one cost units, right? If you have like one cost or upgraded one cost, a lot of times the frontline units are more important, especially in stage 2, right? Having the damage is nice, but like most of the fights usually are determined by whoever's frontline lasts longer, right? Somebody can have like, I'd rather have like a Garen upgrade than an Ahri upgrade, right? If I had to pick one. Just because, like, I'm pretty sure that if my Garen outlives the opponent's Garen, then I'll get to the backline earlier. I'll overwhelm this Ahri, and then I'll just win the fight anyways. The Ahri damage won't compensate for extra frontline in a lot of the cases, right? But this is what I mean, right? Usually you want, like, strong frontline upgrades, and then some of these other units that are more backline focused, they're situationally good, but they're not necessarily, like, the strongest option to start the game out, right? Obviously, like, if you have a faded opener, Yasuo is really good. You love to see it. Same with Ahri. But, like, that's what I'm trying to say, right? You have to gauge the strength of your board and decide whether or not you can actually, like, play around these units. And if not, then you just sell them to make econ, right? That's, like, the main thing, right? If you get these early units and you're not streaking, you want to sell them to make sure that you're making econ thresholds, because the more econ you make, the more money you'll have in order to hit a board later, right? So especially with 3 costs, that's like a big mistake I see a lot of people do, is like they hold on to like the 3 cost unit saying maybe I play this 3 cost unit later. It's like if you have a fucking Soraka and you're not playing around Soraka in the first round, sell it and make 10 gold. You know, the Soraka is going to come back by the time you need her. You know what I mean? If you unless you're going for like Soraka 3, which isn't that strong of a comp. But, you know, that's situational. Obviously, I've seen Soraka reroll pop off. But that's what I mean to say, right? Other low impact portals, same thing, like upgraded champion that I was talking about before. Pot of gold as well, right? Like, yes, like you get a lot of gold at 6-1. But a lot of times, you're dead before 6-1. Sometimes the game is over before 6-1, right? Sometimes there's craziness in the end game, but it's generally low impact. Like, nothing's really going to happen until 6-1, right? So it could cause like a really high variance late game, but it's not really going to do anything for most of the game, right? Same with Prismatic. Well, Prismatic Prelude is a separate thing, right? I don't see Prismatic Prelude. You might look at this. This is where maybe my opinion kind of like fucks up with people, like in terms of thing. I think starting with a Prismatic Augment isn't that bad. I think Prismatic Augments are more balanced than like stuff like Gold Augments, which we'll talk about later, right? The Gold Augments are the ones that are fucked, right? But Prismatic Prelude, like, it gives a lot of direction, but there's not many Prismatic Augments that are, like, insta-win-out Augments, right? Like, especially if you go, like, to Augments, right? If you look at, like, the Gold Augments and you look at, like, the best performing ones, right? Grim Harvest, Midnight Siphon, Ethereal Blades, Too Healthy, Boiling Point. There's all these, like, hero augments and what's it called? Trait-specific augments like Grim Harvest and Boiling Point that are just like insta-win out. Like, it's like you see them and you're like, yeah, that guy's going top 4 unless like some random shit really happens, right? Like, Grim Harvest, if I see somebody with Grim Harvest, I'm not thinking to myself, damn, he low-rolled that gold augment. Storied Champion, Kabuko, where the fuck's Lucky Paws? Lucky Paws? Like, there's so many of these that it's like, yes, they can miss and they can hit, but the gold augments are fucked, which we'll talk about later. But Prismatic, there's very few of them that are like that severe. If you look at the span, like, yes, there's some of them that are really low roll, obviously, like you know, some of the spat ones especially, right? Regular Lucky Gloves, if you don't have like a bunch of gloves already, like, they're very situational. Hedge Fund is very risky, right? But a lot of them, like, as you can see, like for example, Baboom, right? Baboom is like averages really well if it's offered later in the game, but getting it offered in the beginning is pretty bad, right? The reason is that a lot of like the really strong augments later for Prismatic, like combat augments don't do that much at the start of the game, right? That's why I'm sorting by 2-1, because we're talking about Prismatic Prelude here. But they do have a really good payoff later in the game, right? It's just a matter of if your spot is good enough. So if you can sustain a combat augment, then you can high roll and play it later. If you cannot sustain the combat augment, then you should take something that like maybe gives you direction, right? Certain vertical traits that are really good, items that are really good, etc. Right? But there's nothing here that's like, I never look at somebody's opening Prismatic and think to myself, they won the game off of it, right? And I think that kind of goes true to it, because a lot of Prismatics, like, they're really strong if you get like a combat, but combats aren't that good early, they're very good later. And like a lot of like the early rolling and spike ones, like Caretakers or Prismatic Ticket, like a lot of them aren't like they really tunnel vision a comp. So they can give you a lot of direction, but it also increases that variance, because if they don't hit, or if they get contested, or stuff like that happens later, then they run into like a situation where they might not perform as well anyways. So it's kind of like, that's the risk that you have to take. You have to decide, like, do I take something that's really forcing, that might place a little bit better, but do like kind of well at this point in time, or do I play towards something else, right? The one that plays the best is Tiniest Titan, because it's saying like if you have a fortune opener, right? But that's what I mean. That's like a separate kind of high roll. Which that's why I think like Prismatics in general, there's none of them that I see on like 2-1, and I'm like, oh fuck, the game is messed up, it's over, right? So that's why I consider it very low impact. I often sit on Prismatic games, even though Prismatics are like wildly strong and different. Having a Prismatic opener isn't that necessarily that bad, right? At the same way, I see like Prismatic Party is the same way. It's a little bit more variance, but I still find it's like low impact relative to the entire game. The reason is that there's no gold augments if it's Prismatic Party, right? The gold augments are usually the big offenders for me in the current landscape of the game, right? Obviously they can change in a patch or two, right? But that's the ones that really fuck over the game, is when somebody hits like Midnight Siphon Plus and they already have like 4 Yoriks, then all of a sudden they're just Yorick 3 out of nowhere and they just win the game, right? I should have a video on that somewhere, but I can show it at one point. You can check out my Midnight Siphon game. I should have one on my channel, right? Because that's what happened to me, right? But in general, with like Prismatic Party, if you miss out on certain, like let's say you start the game and you take a certain augment, right? If let's say you like, usually with Prismatic, what you want to do is you want to have some sort of combat augment, right? If you have like triple combats, that's like the strongest you can be. But typically you'll take like an econ augment, a combat augment, and one other that helps your board, right? Because like you're trying to keep up with the lobby in terms of how much gold they have, as well as how much strength they have. If you take, like, for example, Prismatic Ticket first, then you have 2 more chances to hit a Prismatic Combat Augment. It doesn't matter what it is, but either, like, a spat that can help you, that can treat yourself as a combat, something that gives you items, something that gives you relative strength, like Jeweled Lotus, right? There's stuff that you can hit later that you can compensate for it, right? The worst thing that happens is when Prismatic shows up and it only shows up one time. Like Prismatic Ending, right, is really bad in my opinion, because when you have Prismatic Ending, there's some of them that are like extremely fucking strong, like Jeweled Lotus, and then you could get offered like absolute dog shit like Hedge Fund, well, sometimes not usually Hedge Fund, but you could get absolute dog shit like Pandora's, and it's like, bro, the game's over. I'm not gonna be rolling my items with Pandora's, right? And then you have to roll Pandora's, and then you get Tiniest Titan. It's like, bro, I'm not gonna be healing at the end of the game, right? Or you get Hedge Fund Plus. It's like, great. It's like, this isn't that great. I don't need the gold right now. I need a combat augment. And then you don't get a combat augment, and the rest of the lobby gets like fucking Baboom and the other stuff, right? But when you have Prismatic, when you have like Prismatic Party, because you have 3 chances at Prismatic augments, as long as you're cognizant of, okay, I took an econ augment, now I need a combat augment. I took a combat augment, now I need an econ augment. I took a spat augment, now I need another, like, you can plan around it. So there's less variance. That's why I find that it doesn't really impact the game as much, as long as you play around it in a better way, is what I would say, right? You could high roll it, but you have to be very cognizant of whatever I took in the first place. I have to take something that is like not the same thing, right? You don't take Hedge Fund and then you take what's it called, 2 for 1, and then you take what's it called, Prismatic Ticket, right? Like, you don't take like 3 gold / rolling augments, because then you're gonna be fucked, right? but that's what I mean. Sometimes you can get not offered stuff, but typically I feel like you can play around it. Champion Delivery and Champion Conference. So Champion Delivery is basically just get high cost champions. It kind of works like gold, right? But what you want to do is you really want to play towards a comp that can accept multiple 4 costs or 5 costs, right? An example of a really strong comp to play whenever it's Champion Delivery or Champion Conference. If it's Champion Delivery, a comp that's really nice is something like a Lilia comp, right? Which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Lilia is very flexible because besides like the main core of this board, this is like the typical Lilia Sage Morgana board that you would build. Besides the typical Sage Lilia Morgana board, you can replace this Morgana with pretty much anything and build your board around it, right? Basically, the way it works is that Lilia kind of snipes the backline, and Morgana also snipes the backline, so the two of them together kind of erase most of the board. And that's like the main way this board works. It's kind of like a cheese board where you're trying to kill the enemy carry before your front line dies. It's kind of like a race against the clock, right? And it's very positioning dependent. But the thing is Morgana is basically like an AoE bot and a synergy bot. But you can lose some of those synergies and build around it differently, right? One that I played around, which I'll show you guys later because we'll talk about in a bit, is Lee Sin with Irelia, right? So you can swap out some of your front line, like let's say you don't have Wukong and you play like Lee Sin Irelia. It's like the rest of the board is still the same, right? Like you still have like, you're playing around Dragon Lord, you lose like Ghostly and you lose Sage. But in compensation, you have this Irelia unit that does a shit ton of damage. And because she does like backline damage with the Lilia, and the Lee Sin is kind of like an annoying frontline unit that helps contribute to your front line, you run into a situation where it pretty much performs almost the same, right? It might not be as optimal, but that's what I mean. It's very flexible in the units that you can take, right? You can also play like 4 Invoker variations, right? You can play Irelia, you can play Hui, just play like a 7 Mythic version, right? You just drop some of the other units and you play Mythic, right? I'll just erase these so we can see, right? You can play Irelia, you can play Hui, you can play Morgana, as we said, right? You can play Alun. What's it called? You can play this guy. You can play Alun. Right? Pretty much anybody that does AoE or massive damage as a dual carry can really help you with this comp, right? And that's why, that's what I mean by play a comp that can accept multiple units, right? Another example is like the Kai'Sa comp, right? If you're playing around Kai'Sa, right? Kai'Sa, you want Silas, you want Galio, you want Xayah, right? Because you're playing a comp that uses multiple 4 costs and 5 costs, when Champion Delivery or Champion Conference starts dropping you the units, you start to spike, right? Because you actually can hit something. You have a greater chance of hitting something that's usable, right? That's the main thing I'm trying to point out. Something that's really important with like Champion Delivery and Conference is also playing around the 5 costs that work really well with comps. So for example, Azir, right? Azir is like a necessary unit for Dryads. So especially with Conference where the units are tailored, right? Mythic. I'm talking about vertical traits here, right? Irelia, either Duelist or Story Weaver, right? Playing these comps, right? And this one Faded, right? What happens is a lot of times, like when you're playing like Syndra and you're playing Faded, you're like, shit, I really need a set. I hope I hit a set soon. Well, if the game just drops you the set because you're playing Faded, then you don't worry about hitting that Faded threshold, right? The same with Story Weaver, right? In order to play 7 Story Weaver without a spat, you need an Irelia. If the game just gives you an Irelia, it's like, oh, you're playing Story Weaver, here's a champion that fits your team. It removes all the variance of playing around the unit, right? A lot of times in Champion Conference, I'll play around Story Weaver or Faded because I know that I'm going to hit a set and I know that I'm going to hit an Irelia because the game's going to give it to me, right? Or I'll play Vertical Mythic, right? If you play Vertical Mythic, it's like the biggest problem is like, oh, I need to play 7 Mythic. I can hit 7 Mythic without the Hui, but I really needed to play the Hui because the Hui is like the better carry, right, with the Lilia to do AoE damage, right? That's why the 7 Mythic works like that. It eliminates the thing. One of the biggest problems is like Ink Shadow. Like a lot of times Ink Shadow +1 is really hard to take because you basically need an Udyr to hit 7 Ink Shadow even with an emblem. So a lot of times you're like, shit, how do I hit 7 Ink Shadow without an Udyr? Guess what? Champion Conference, you're playing Ink Shadow, here's a free Udyr, right? Playing around lines that require a 4 or 5 cost usually are really strong because they rely on the variance of you not being able to hit those 4 or 5 costs until a really large period of time or investing a lot of gold. But if you're playing a portal like Champions Conference or Delivery, where it just gives you a bunch of 5 costs or it gives you a bunch of 4 costs or whatever, those high cost units, then you're very likely to hit those thresholds and play those vertical traits and be very strong. So I would always angle towards a comp that uses a 5 cost, basically. If there's a comp that doesn't use a 5 cost, like there's some of them, like certain reroll comps where like you don't necessarily get a 5 cost unit that fits on your board, then you might not like spike as hard, right? That's like Zyra board, for example, right? There's no real 5 cost that you're playing with Zyra because you're staying at like level 7 rolling for 3 stars. You kind of dig yourself into a hole where you're accepting the fact that like other people are going to spike really hard and you might not necessarily. Okay, now we're going to talk about high variance portals. Hopefully this video isn't getting too long because I'm kind of rambling a little bit. The high variance portals, right? A lot of times with different types of variance, this is something that I kind of consider to myself. It's not something that you really find anywhere. I don't think this is like a general like well thought school of thought, but it is something that I feel like a lot of players kind of like describe and talk about. The way that I divide variance is I would think a lot towards how do I phrase it? Like gap and like wild / like swing, right? So like when I say like gap, like let's say there's little like Timmy here and he's in like first place, right? And then there's you that's like I don't know, you're Tommy and you're in 8th place, right? If like for example, let's say this guy, he has like upgrade, like he has a strong board. Let's say he's just strong, right? And let's say you're weak, right? When I say gap, what I mean by this is, let's say you just give him like plus 10 gold, right? Plus 10 gold, right? Who can use the gold more efficiently, right? A lot of times what this does is it makes it so that like the person that's in a position that they're very strong, they can use this gold a lot better because they can continue to be strong, right? For you that you get this plus 10 gold, it's like, yes, you might be lose streaking, right? But if you're not lose streaking, like if you win a fight, you get your streak griefed, right? Stuff like that. A lot of times what ends up happening is the gold actually doesn't help you. It just makes this gap wider because the person that's here that's high rolling, right? They basically have gold to like they could just go 9, right? Like they just go to level 9 and you're like here and you're like stuck on 8, right? The best way I can describe it is like, let's say 2 people level to level 8 at the same point in time, right? Something that can happen with variance is like one person can hit instantly. Like this guy can hit Syndra 2 and you have like Lilia 1, right? If I just give both of these guys, this guy with Syndra 2 50 gold and this guy with Lilia 1 50 gold, what's gonna happen? This guy's gonna go to 9 and this guy's gonna stay on 8, right? What that widens the relative placement between these 2 people. It makes it harder for this guy to catch up, right? The reason it's harder for this guy to catch up is because if this guy has a Syndra 2 and he's already going to level 9, that 50 gold only made him get stronger faster. You that still has a Lilia 1, you have to roll all your gold on 8. Now you're going to be fighting like a level 9 board. Instead of just fighting like a same level board and that guy just has a singular upgrade, now he's able to go 9, get legendary units on his board. After he gets legendary units, he can continue going up. It kind of steamrolls. TFT has this effect where it steamrolls a lot. Obviously, I'm exacerbating a bit, but there's certain portals that really make this apparent, and I'll talk about it in a bit. But this is what I mean by like when I say like widens gap, right? What I mean by that is like somebody who hits or somebody who's already high rolling, if you just pump them with a lot of resources, a lot of times they'll get further and further ahead. And you can't really quite catch up because if you don't hit your units, like imagine, like here I'm saying Lilia 1. Imagine if I was like a reroll board, right? Imagine if I was a reroll board, I didn't hit Shen 3. It's like by the time I hit Shen 3, this guy's already going to be like fucking a lot higher of a level, right? So that's why the gold does it. Like it sounds like it would be equal, but the thing is like when you get higher quality units, right? When you're able to get to those higher levels, you not only have more units on your board, you also have higher quality units. It starts to matter a lot more, right? And that's what can happen sometimes with the variance, right? Alternatively, this guy can have like a Syndra 2, right? And I can have a Lilia 1, right? And then what can happen is like this guy can just get like plus I don't know, plus like Wukong, and I can get like plus Irelia, right? What this does is this is a variance that's more like a swing, right? What that does is like, instead of this guy getting further ahead, like what does he get? He gets like 5 gold. It's like 5 gold is fine. Me, that I was struggling, that my board is really weak, now having this Irelia, I can probably stabilize around it, play like some variation. I'm just picking a random unit because I'll just talk about Lilia with Irelia. But like there's lots of examples like this, right? If the boards were swapped and like this guy randomly hits a set and then he has 5 faded, right? There's ways that people can spike by just gaining like some sort of item or some sort of unit or some sort of thing. Like imagine if he has like a Syndra 2 and he doesn't have blue buff and I just give him a blue buff. It's like that's something that's gonna help him to I don't want to say like narrows the gap, but what it can do is can greatly swing the positions on where they would place in the final game, right? And that's a different type of high variance that can happen. Anyways, I just want to give like a little bit of a break. When I'm talking about high variance, right? There's different kinds of high variance, right? So that, like, I was talking like just in general high variance. Then I was talking about gap widening. I'll just go through these portals pretty fast, as well as with some examples, hopefully, that I can show, right? One example is like high variance, quote unquote. What I mean by that is that like typically these portals, when I say like quote unquote high variance, it's like there's a lot of like wild swings that can happen, but a lot of the time it's like unless somebody really hits something crazy, it doesn't affect the game that much, right? You can still play around it. What I mean is like the game isn't over on stage 2-1, right? So for example, Vendor Sentinels, really anybody with a Moonstone kind of like gets fucked. It gets like in a really good spot and then the lobby's messed up. But if nobody has a Moonstone, the only other problem is like if you get a Vendor Sentinel, this is the one with the support items, where the support items grief each other, right? So imagine like a Randuin's and a Locket, right? Like the Locket wants them all in a row, and then the Randuin wants them clumped around the unit. You can run into this situation where you can't get like full value off of the 2 dummy or the 2 support items. So you run into like a situation, right? But a lot of times, like if you get Vendor Sentinels, you can usually play around it, which is why it's not like that crazy in terms of its variance. Another example is Trainer Sentinels. A lot of people like Trainer Sentinels can wildly swing the game. Don't get me wrong. But to me, it's not like the worst kind of variance. Because the only time that is really bad, in my opinion, is when like you have a shared dummy. Like if you have the same emblems on your dummy as somebody else, then it's like you're in a game where you're forced to grief each other. You're forced to contest each other. And then the people that aren't contesting each other, they have like a really good spot, right? But a lot of times, like unless you like really high roll the dummy, right? Like the only time Trainer Sentinels is really crazy is when somebody hits like a mythic +1. Because a mythic +1 means that they can be 10 mythic on level 9 so long as they find one more spatula. And because of augment tailoring, you can hit that fairly easily if there's like gold augment. Excuse me, if there's like gold or prismatic augments. So you run into a situation where like sometimes they can high roll, but not all the time, right? What I mean is that the game's still playable. Like you can still kind of play for a positioning. An example for me is here with let me find it. This one. So this is my training dummy, right? Oops, I have my audio on. So my training dummy, I have Arcanist and Warden, right? It's not the craziest dummy in the lobby, right? There's gonna be better dummies that other people have. Oops, let me play this. Right? But basically, I choose to play around this Arcanist Warden because I know that it can get me like a pretty easy top 4, right? I think if you're creative and you know a lot of different lines, you can kind of make a board as long as you understand strong units, right? Like I know this Lux unit is very strong, and I also know that 8 Arcanist places like very high typically, right? I've played 8 Arcanist before. I know that a Lux 2, like not a Lux 3, I'm not saying Lux reroll, a Lux 2 with 8 Arcanist is like, it's very easy to top 4, even if the lobby is kind of fucking crazy, right? So for me at least, I just play out this game, just playing around this Arcanist emblem, which isn't like the most common emblem. It's obviously gaining popularity now because like a lot of people are playing towards these sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. A lot of people are playing towards like Lux, like there's new Lux rerolls every day because like she got buffed, so people are trying her out a lot more, right? But what I mean to say is like compared to like other dummies that people can hit, like this guy with Fortune and Duelist, it's like, yeah, this guy's gonna be really fucking strong. Yeah, some people are gonna be really strong. Like yes, there's like variance based on like what people hit. Like this guy, I think he's like 7 Ink Shadow, right? That he's very strong. But I felt like pretty comfy in a lot of these games where I can just like play towards a top 4 even if it's not like the best line ever, right? So what I finished the game was just 8 Arcanist, 4 Warden. But obviously you can high roll the dummy. That's why it's like quote unquote high variance. Like sometimes the dummy can completely fuck you over, right? Like if I got like, I don't know, Ink Shadow, Arcanist, Warden, it's like I'd obviously be a lot weaker because I can't play towards all of the units, right? But to me, it's like, you know, besides, I think I even messed up positioning in 1 or 2 fights. I could have easily gone a third this game, right? But that's what I mean. So long as you're able to play around your dummy well enough, like you can see something that's uncontested and play like a really strong vertical, you typically can make it work, right? That's why I don't consider it to be the worst, right? I don't really care too much. It's like high variance sometimes. Sometimes the game's completely fucked, but sometimes the game isn't that fucked. It's kind of normal, right? The same with like Radiant item, right? Radiant item, sometimes it doesn't really do anything, but sometimes it just ruins the game, right? Because sometimes, like, you know, like let's say you're playing like a melee unit and then you just don't hit a melee item. It's like now your Radiant item's gonna be wasted on some random shitter unit on your board instead of like one of your good units, right? So that's why it could screw you over. But often, because you get a selection, right? You not only get 1 of 5 Radiant items, you also get a magnetic remover. That's the big part, right? So even if you itemize your carry, you can still change it to have a Radiant item at one point in the game, right? So it, like, there is some high roll, there's some Radiant items that are much better than others, right? We can look at them right now, right? But what I would suggest always is play a board where you can play multiple units, right? We'll go back to that Lilia board in a bit, right? So like if we go on items and we go Radiant items, right? There's some of them that are way better, right? Obviously, a lot of the AP ones are really good because AP is really strong. And then Brink of Dawn is really good because Kayn, like, Reapers are really strong right now. But if you look at it, it's mostly like AP items, right? Blue buff, Shojin, this, right? So if you're in a Radiant lobby, what I would suggest is playing towards AP, right? If you're playing towards AP, what are you playing towards? Typically Lilia board, right? If you're playing around Lilia Morgana, the chances are you're going to have a unit that can go on one of these 2 units, right? If it's an AP item. Right, if you need a frontline item, you could probably put on like Nautilus, right? If you're playing the Nautilus variation, and if you run into a situation where you can't play any units, right? You can't play any of the items, and you need to play like an AD unit. You can always pivot and play Irelia, right? Irelia can fit into this board really nicely because you just play around Lilia with Dragon Lords, right? Because you just play around like Lee Sin and Janna, right? I have a lot of success doing this one. It's not the strongest line, right? I'm not saying this is gonna get you first every game. But what I'm saying is, like, you know, if you really have to, you can play around fitting in these units because your front line's very flexible, right? You can play Lilia with Silas as well, right? If you have like a frontline item that's more attack focused, right? You have some options there, right? So that's what I mean. You have to play towards comps that can accept multiple items really easily. In this set, there's not really a comp that like does like AP/AD really well, but typically angle towards AP, angle towards like a Lilia or even like a Syndra, right? Angle towards like these type of units when you see Radiant item, and then you should be kind of okay, right? Artifact Anvil is similar, right? There's some high roll and sometimes you can miss and then your game's very hard. A lot of times they are very high variance. It's because some of the artifacts are just plain fucking cheeks, like they're just bad, right? If you look at it, a lot of these are very situational, right? If you get Wit's End, it's only really good on Bard, right? If you get Suspicious Trenchcoat, it's really good in general. But like some of these items like Silvermere Dawn, Snipers, Horizon Focus, right? Like they have good placement, but they really require you to have certain units. And if you're not playing towards those units already, or you don't have a good opener for them, like your other items don't make sense with it, then like they're unclickable. And then there's so many of these that are just fucking cheeks, like Cursed Blade, Rapid Fire Cannon. Like Corrupt Vampiric Scepter is really good on Irelia, but if you don't have an Irelia, it's fucking useless. Prowler's Claw, even on Kayn, it's not that good. This is just a lie, right? This item is just shit. So is Luden's Tempest, right? And the problem is, like, if you get offered like Fishbones, Luden's Tempest, Prowler's Claw, and Corrupt Vampiric Scepter, it's like, what the fuck do you do, right? And then somebody else just starts the game off with a Zhonya's, a Diamond Hands, and Eternal Winter. You're like sitting around, you're like, what about me? Like, what the fuck do I do? I'm fucking 8th, right? And that's what, like, there's not really anything you can really play around it, right? The artifact, you get it really early in the game, right? Because you start the game with it. So basically you can high roll or low roll it, and then you have to just play around it, right? If you low roll it, you just gotta look at your board. You gotta be like, okay, I gotta play strong. I gotta prepare myself for like the other people that might have hit something, and you gotta scout and you gotta see, right? But there's not much you can do. But that's what I mean. Sometimes it's very non-impactful, right? Sometimes nobody hits something that's really crazy, or like because you're getting offered, you have 4 options. You really have to low roll it in order for the game to be like messed up, right? Or you have to high roll it out of those 4 options. A lot of times you just find like an average frontline item and you can make do with it. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. But sometimes you can just like absolutely mess up your game. The same thing with support item. Oh, this is a little bit, sorry, the text here is wrong. But basically with support item, it's the same as like artifact anvil. There's some of them that are really good, and there's some of them that are just fucking cheeks, right? And that happens a lot too, right? If we go to support items, right? As you can see, it's always Moonstone. Moonstone's just really good on every comp. Because it just gives so much shielding. It gives so much HP and frontline to all your units. That's really important. And then there's a lot of them that are situationally good. Like even Zephyr. Like Zephyr is one that sometimes you don't take. Like it says it's the worst performing one because it's like a little bit awkward to play around. But like the worst ones, right? You get an option of like 4 of them. So the chances are, especially if it's early game, you can find something, right? You can find something to play around, right? Because a lot of them, if you look at their, even if you look at just their placement in general, they're not that bad, right? You just have to play around it. But like, you know, you could just low roll. You could just get offered like these 4 or these like couple, and then you're just like, oh great. But even Locket, it says Locket's bad. Locket's really fucking good, especially early game, right? These stats are like not really real. Some of them are very situationally good though, which is what the problem is. An example with another high variance is like Prismatic Finale, right? The reason Prismatic Finale to me is way worse than Prismatic Opener, as well like Prismatic Prelude and Prismatic Party, is because there's a lot of bailout augments in combat, right? Whoever hits a Prismatic Combat is going to be stronger than most of the lobby because of how strong the Prismatic Combats are relative to other combat augments, right? If you have Jeweled Lotus Gold, it's like it gives you a certain amount of stats, right? If you have Jeweled Lotus Prismatic, it is really fucking strong, right? Final Ascension Prismatic is really fucking strong relative to like Silver Ascension or Gold Ascension, right? The Prismatic Augments as a combat are really strong. So if you get only one crack at a Prismatic Augment and it's like the last augment that you pick, you kind of run into a situation where some people just hit a combat augment, their board gets insanely fucking strong, and you don't get offered a combat, and you just lose out on a lot of placements because of it, right? That's why it's a lot of variance. There's also like bailout ones, like what's it called? Like somebody could be re-rolling and then they just hit Prismatic Ticket and then they 3-star everything on their board and all of a sudden they're in a good spot, right? That's why I really hate Prismatic Finale, right? If I want to see a Prismatic Augment in the game, I want to see it on stage 1 or stage 2 so that I can play around it and structure the rest of my augments to support it, right? If I see that people have Prismatic Combat, then I'll make sure that my next 2 combat augments, even if they're not Prismatic, are combat to compensate so that I'm equally as strong, right? Stuff like that. But if I get it offered last and I don't get offered something that keeps up with the rest of the lobby, then that's where it can wildly swing my placements, right? At the same time, like a lot of times I'm talking about these in a negative way also. I just want to point out, I'm talking about them in a negative way because obviously like everybody's happy when things high roll, right? What I'm talking about is like, hey, you know, whenever people talk about variance, it's usually like the negative aspect of it. I'm talking about it like why I don't like these negative aspects of like it ruins my position, right? Because I'm more inclined to a lower variance game, right? Obviously, if you want something to be wild or like kind of like bailout and crazy, then and more fun, then obviously these are better, right? Just in terms of structure. I should have said that probably earlier. But anyways, Tactician's Crown, right? Typically it favors rerolls, right? A lot of times when you're making a reroll board, you want to be able to level up later, right? Think Zyra, think of a lot of these other comps, right? So having the +1 makes it so you can easily just slot in that unit for synergies. And if it's not reroll, then you can cap your board really high, right? For example, like a Tactician's Crown in a Mythic setup, like a lot of times getting 10 Mythic, you need to be level 10, 10 Story, you need to be level 10. Tactician's Crowns make it so that everybody can be level 10 a lot earlier because all you have to do is make it to level 9. That's what I mean by sometimes it can cap, but it's very situational. Now, high variance games. Time to look at some high variance games. So one of the most annoying high variance ones is Loot Subscription, right? Loot Subscription is one of those games where like anybody can win, right? Here's an example, right? This is a Loot Subscription game, and guess what? I had Fortune Opener, right? And because it's Loot Subscription, it drops a tome, right? We can watch it right here. Look, I'm gonna start the game, right? And I hit, what do I hit? Fortune Crown. So I had Fortune Crown, and guess what? I'm 7 Fortune because oops, I didn't show the tome pop, right? I had Fortune and then I popped tome. I did pop tome early here, by the way. Right, I only have 5 in. I should have waited a turn, get 6 traits in, and try and play for the Fortune Crown. So it's definitely a high roll, right? Oh, I don't hit fortune just yet. I hit fortune later, actually. I'm trying to skip ahead here. This is a video on my channel, right? I know some people were talking about fortune before, but as you can see, at one point, loot subscription drops another tome, and let's go. I'm just talking about fortune cash out. Sorry, I'm VOD reviewing my own VOD. So as you can see, because I have 2 fortune emblems, it means I can hit 7 fortune, right? And if you want to see how the game ends, right around here, I think I have 3-star Hui. Yeah, check out my game. Right? Stage 5. 100 gold, level 10. I think I end the game with like 3-star Lysandra, 3-star Hui. Like, absolutely disgusting, right? That's what happened with loot subscription, right? Like, this could have been anybody. Anybody could hit. Like, look at, wait, like, if you haven't seen a 3-star legendary ever, I'll show you in this video. Oh my gosh, I know I hit it for sure. Come on. Oh, there we go, 3-star Hui. I hit Lysandra. I think I hit Lysandra eventually. Or maybe not in this game. I played a couple fortune games like this, and alright, we just want to watch this just for funs. Ready? And one more cast. After use goes on Hui, so it takes a little bit of time, and boom. The whole board's gone. Does this look even remotely close? That's between first and second place. Imagine how I shit stomp the rest of the lobby, right? That's what happens sometimes with loot subscription, right? Loot subscription, like anybody can win a lot of the times, and it's very easy to sway. This isn't like a gap widening type of thing. A lot of times it can really shuffle your placements because certain people can just hit certain things and make their board really strong, right? Imagine if you're playing like a reroll comp and you don't have certain units, right? In loot subscription reroll, like, you know, unless you get like a fawn, you really don't spike that hard, right? As opposed to somebody who can just gain like a 5-cost champion, right? They can gain like a bunch of 5-cost, they can gain spats, right? There's lots of things that can like really sway your positioning. What you always want to do is you want to play towards comps that can high roll, right? When you're in loot subscription, right? Loot subscription especially can drop spatulas, right? So when you see that, you should always think like mythic, right? Mythic is one of the easiest ones to hit 10 mythic because you only need 2 spats for it, right? Think about these like vertical traits where it's like, oh, I only need X amount of spats to win, right? That was a game where I played towards fortune, then loot subscription dropped me a fortune spat, easy win, right? It's stuff like that, right? If you play towards like comps that can high roll, then you'll typically do a little bit better in these higher variance games, and that's like a lot of like the thing. So loot subscription could be really fun sometimes, but like, you know, if you don't have a spot to play towards like a high variance comp, then you run into some situations. Golden Prelude is horrible, but it's not bad. It's bad, but it's not horrible, right? Because the reason is because gold augments are so broken, right? I was kind of showing it a little bit before, but when you look at gold augments, there's a lot of them that like it's basically the hero augments are all very strong, right? Like Midnight Siphon, Grim Harvest, it's kind of like a hero augment. It's just like the Reaper augment now that's really fucking strong. Ethereal Blades, right? Comparatively, like you can just hit something shit like Epoch and like Crash Test Dummies. I know Drop Blossom says it's like not that good here, but that's because Nico in general is just hard to hit. But like a lot of times hitting like the hero augments, I know I'm not like showing like obviously like Prismatic Prelude is a little bit different. Golden Prelude is a little bit different because this Yorick augment is not as good when you start the game because typically like you don't know if you're gonna hit it or not, right? The one that is performing the best, I'll be like honest, is a Midnight Siphon Plus because at 3-2 it gives you a Yorick 2, which is a huge spike in itself, right? That's why it's really high. So like I want to make sure that you understand that like, you know, a lot of these hero augments do better later in the game just because then you know for sure if you can hit it. So like the people that take Midnight Siphon Plus, it's because they already have a couple Yoriks, right? So that's why it places really high, because they have a couple Yoriks and then they take it and then they get Yorick 3, right? But there's a lot of these augments that are like really a lot of direction as well as a lot of strength. And I think the least balanced ones are the gold ones, which is why in my opinion I find that it's really high variance to play towards gold ones, right? Radiant Blessing as well, right? The problem with Radiant Blessing, this portal, basically you get like an item or you get loot when you're at very low player health. The thing is you can't like play around it because you can't say I'm gonna sack all my HP until I'm 40 and I'll see the Radiant Blessing. It's like you don't know what the Radiant Blessing is gonna be, so you don't know if it's like a blessing where you want to have a lot of HP, or you don't know if it's something that's gonna help you like with your current comp, right? Like a lot of times, like Radiant Blessing could be a spatula, right? And you can be like, well, great, I can't use a spat. Like let's say you're playing Fortune and you're playing around like Kaisa. It's like you run into a situation where it's like, great, now I'm Kaisa. Kaisa's comp doesn't really spike really hard with a spatula, and the Radiant Blessing is a spatula. It's like, you know, I would have been better off playing towards something else, right? And that's what I mean by you can really high roll or low roll it. So that's why it's typically like very variant on who it actually affects, and because you don't know until somebody has, like, typically like a lot of times with Radiant Blessing, what I like to do is be high HP, right? The reason I like to be high HP is because then you can scout somebody's board right when they're about to be 40 HP. You can watch their board, you can see what the Radiant Blessing is, and then you can play around it like that. But even so, if you're high HP, it's probably because you already committed to a comp and you already made a very strong comp, right? It's like, oh yeah, easy, Radiant Blessing, just high roll. It's like, yeah, that's like such a dumb thing to say, right? But what I'm trying to say is usually I like to preserve HP so I have some opportunity to try and play around it, but it's very often like whatever it is, it's like, okay, yeah, I just gotta deal with that, right? And that's what I mean by it could have a lot of variance. Golden Finale is like the same as like Golden Start, where it's like having these gold tier augments, there's just too many of them that are really fucked up, right? It's mostly the hero augments and the trait specific augments, right? Like prismatic traits, there's not like any of them that like buff a particular like that don't buff a particular trait. There's a lot of gold ones that buff particular traits, right? Boiling Point, Sniper's Focus, right? Or whatever that one is, Grim Harvest, right? These ones, in addition to Storied Champion, Kabuko reroll, right? But if it's Golden Finale, you usually don't have to worry about like, I guess you could worry about some things, but usually like you don't have to worry about like the Yorick augments, like the hero augments, which is why it's still like variance, but it's not that bad. I just like to avoid gold altogether in this patch, right? And then Ascending Augment is like the same as like same excuse for the other ones, right? Having an ending prismatic, I already talked about why I don't like it. Having a middle gold, I already talked about why I don't like it. So generally that's what I find with the like the variance, right? And now what we're going to talk about is like high variance where the gap widens, right? So when I was talking about like a lot of times, Crab Rave and Scuttle Puddle are ones where you run into situations where whoever hits early wins, right? You can have like somebody who's stuck on level 8 and then all of a sudden somebody's level 10, right? As opposed to like, you know, a lot of times when you're stuck on level 8, the rest of the lobby is maybe level 9, right? This is manageable, right? It's only +1 unit. The odds aren't that crazy, right? If you get a bunch of gold, you can maybe make it to level 9 at one point and then like match up with them and like, you know, win a couple fights, right? But the problem is, but like a lot of times what ends up happening is like somebody who high rolls really hard, they're just like steamrolling the lobby. They're just going straight to level 10 and then you're stuck on level 8. So this is a different kind of variance where it's not like anybody can win, but as much as it's like people are going to cap really high, and if you miss, you might run into a situation where even though you have a lot of gold and you might be able to hit a board, you might fall drastically behind a lot of the other people. And that's what usually happens, right? A lot of times in Crab Rave, it's not necessarily who has like the best opener. That's not what I'm saying. It's usually whoever has the best transition from mid game to end game. Whoever on stage 4-2 hits their board and is very strong is typically the top 4, right? And that's why I don't like it. This one's the one I kind of hate the most. I think all of these I kind of frame like when it's high variance, I'm like, oh yeah, you can just lose randomly and it kind of sucks. But a lot of these are still fun, right? Like you'll see me sit on Radiant Item and Prismatic Finale and Tactician's Crown sometimes. Like even sometimes I sit on Loot Subscription if I'm really just having a bad day that I want to have fun. But I almost never sit on Crab Rave or Scuttle Puddle, because I find that it's so unfun that at one point in the game, it feels like it decides the outcome of all of the people based on like if you hit or not. It feels like very lottery, and that's like a different kind of variance where it's like I don't enjoy it that much. That's why I like to separate it by saying like the gap widens, right? Because like even something like Loot Subscription, even if somebody's really far ahead in Loot Subscription, there's still a chance that you hit something that makes it closer in the game, right? With Scuttle Puddle and Crab Rave, because you're just gaining a bunch of gold, right? Like the bonus loot that you're gaining is mostly gold, right? It just swells up the boards, and because the boards swell up, it just kind of separates further and further away from each other in terms of how strong they are, right? Another idea is like gold subscription. It's like a less severe crab rave, but it still follows that same idea, right? If you hit like really early, like let's say you just hit all of your 4 cost upgrades, then you run into a situation where that person's going to get so far ahead because they're going to be able to cap their board, right? The biggest problem with TFT is like you have to buy your units, you have to reestablish econ, and then you have to use that econ to level, and then you have to level and find more units and cap your board. Well, if you take somebody who already hit all their units and just give them a bunch of gold, they already reestablished their econ. Meanwhile, you have to still roll your gold, and then you still have to go to the next stage of reestablishing your econ and then level and then do all that other stuff. You just like basically took away the only thing that could make you kind of catch up in a lot of these situations, right? But typically, they're very hard to play around, right? Like being strong early doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be strong late. Maximizing econ doesn't necessarily mean it. It basically just comes down a lot of the time on like your level 8 roll down, or if you're going reroll, if you hit your rerolls really early. Right? Imagine if you're rerolling, you don't hit anything, right? You burn out all your gold, you're gonna be like level 7, and there's gonna be some boards that are like level 10 with like 2-star legendaries. It's like, well, great, you know what I mean? That's what I mean by that type of thing. And now we get to the final tier towards the end of the video. Fucked. Golden Gala is the worst one. There's a special place in hell for people that sit on this, because it's not like fun to me to have like the game decided by all these fucking hero augments. Like the gold, like I was talking to my friend who's in Challenger. I was like, aren't these gold augments kind of fucked? And he was like, I'm pretty sure if they made a prismatic augment that was like, hey, for this prismatic, you get an option to select a gold augment, that would be the best prismatic augment in the game. Like that's like literally, there's so many gold augments that are just so fucked. Like imagine if you had a prismatic that's like you can pick any hero augment, everybody would take it. There's not a single person that would roll past that. You know what I mean? Think about it, right? You know, maybe I'm being a bit exaggerating, obviously, but like that's what I mean. Like stuff like Golden Gala, Champion Duplicator, right? Just making it so that like there's so many variances where like there's so many situations where somebody could just like hit something and win out, and like, you know, 3-star legendary, not 3-star legendary, 3-star 4 cost, stuff like that, as well as Spatula, right? Spatula, like, it's not that fucked, but it's pretty bad, especially if you don't hit like an opener where you spike with certain comms. And it also, excuse me, it makes it really easy to get a mythic, right? It makes it really easy as a viable strat to play towards mythic. So I find like these ones are like the most variants, right? It's like all of the ones like the Giga variants ones, right? But anyways, also Spaghettio. This is like when there's no portal in the game, it means there's a counter. We'll talk about these tomorrow or sometime this week when I have the chance. But we'll talk about encounters and how those kind of affect the game. But anyways, man, this has been a long ass video, so I don't want to go over too many examples because I just kind of talked about it. I did a couple of these in between, right? But like for example, like this is a Golden Gala one. Somebody sat on Golden Gala, and like you can look at stage like 2-1, right? Like look, this is Golden Gala. And also like the way augments work is when you roll a certain augment, Wrath of the Moon is another one that's fucking broken, by the way. But when you roll an augment, you don't see it anymore. So when you have something like Golden Gala, it makes it really easy for you to fish for certain augments, right? Like let's say I was playing towards Umbral. Like, because when you see an augment, it doesn't get offered anymore, and because it's all locked on gold tier, you can like filter, like you can, it's kind of like milling a deck, right? That's like a Yu-Gi-Oh term. We're going back to like the intro, right? If you look at this lobby, I'm pretty sure there's like every hero augment in the game: Story Champion, Midnight Siphon, Grim Harvest, Kabuko reroll. You know what I mean? This video was crazy. I just played Lux reroll because I'm really comfortable around Lux. So I was able to get like a top 4. But this is what I mean. These ones are the ones that are like the crazy games, right? People think the crazy games are maybe Prismatic, maybe something else. No, Golden Gala is the crazy games. But anyways, like I said, if you want to see like examples of portals and what I do around them, there's also my videos on my YouTube channel. So please make sure to like and subscribe and check them out. I feel like this video was a lot of talking and just like talking about like certain stuff, right? I also have like a crab rave video, right? That I lost even though I was like level 9, every legendary upgraded, right? But in general, I think a lot of the games, like I kind of phrase it like, oh yeah, this one's fucked because this can happen. I always look at stuff in a negative way when it comes to variance. I don't mean to do that, right? I would like you to understand that I'm just phrasing it in terms of what I find fun. If I'm talking about like what the funnest portals are, like for me, my fun stops like somewhere around here, right? Like I don't mind these high variance ones, but I think the ones that I hate the most are like Crab Rave, Scuttle Puddle, Gold Subscription, Golden Gala, Champ Duplicator, Spatula. Like these ones are the ones that are like, okay, this game sucks. As well as like when it starts with an encounter, right? But a lot of these other ones, they're still enjoyable, right? And that's like the beauty of TFT. Anyway, this video has been really long, so I'm gonna let you guys go. Hopefully this was really fun, and hopefully it was really exciting. And for anybody who actually stuck around and watched the whole thing, God bless you, because this is like worse than a podcast. Because this is a podcast, they tell funny stories. You're not just bitching about TFT. Anyways, see you. Bye-bye.